All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're taking a deep dive into some pretty out there stuff.
Definitely out there.
You guys sent in some excerpts from the work of L.S. Larkey, and
Oh, it's Larkey.
yeah, have you heard of this person?
Oh, yeah. They're kind of a legend in certain circles.
Certain Circle.
Yeah, you know those folks who love to blend physics and spirituality.
Right, right. And this idea of a soul-body bond.
Exactly. That's what we're diving into today, and it's all about how our DNA,
Our DNA.
specifically the stuff we used to just call junk DNA,
Oh, yeah, the junk DNA.
might actually be like a tuning fork for our souls.
Whoa, okay, now that's a bold claim. So how does Larkey even start to connect something like DNA to something as intangible as the soul?
Well, they build on this theory called the Grand Fibonacci theory, and
And Fibonacci, okay, I'm already intrigued.
it gets pretty wild. This theory suggests that there are all these unseen energies, like subtle magnetic fields and even tiny fluctuations in the vacuum of space.
Whoa, okay, so we're talking about like the fabric of reality itself.
Yeah, and all of these energies are interacting and creating wave patterns within our bodies.
So we're like swimming in this sea of invisible energy.
That's a great way to put it. And those waves,
So those waves.
they're not random. They're shaped by something, and that's where our DNA comes in.
Okay, so our DNA is somehow influencing these energy waves, but how?
It's through this thing called the synergy PDE.
Synergy PDE.
Think of it like an equation, a way to describe how all those subtle energies combine and form these really unique wave patterns.
So it's like a blueprint for how energy works within us.
Exactly, and here's the kicker.
Yeah.
Larkey says our DNA, specifically those repetitive sequences in the so-called junk DNA, acts as a filter.
A filter.
It shapes those wave patterns in a way that's different for everyone.
Hold on, so you're saying our junk DNA is like customizing these energy waves?
That's the idea. It's like our DNA is setting the boundaries or the conditions for how these waves can form within us.
So it's like everyone has their own unique energy signature based on their DNA.
Larkey actually calls this the synergy wave. And it's almost like a fingerprint, but on an energetic level.
Okay, I'm already mind blown, and we haven't even gotten to the soul part yet.
We're getting that. We've got this foundation of these subtle energies and how our DNA might be shaping them. So now let's add another layer.
Another layer, bring it on.
This is where the soul wave comes in. And Larkey uses the Greek letter she to represent it.
Okay, she for soul wave, got it.
And here's where things get really wild.
Very wilder.
They propose that this soul wave, it exists outside of our physical bodies.
Outside, like it's not something our bodies create.
Right. It's more like it's out there in the universe like a signal just waiting to be picked up.
Okay, so I'm picturing this soul wave floating around in the cosmos, but how does it how does it find its way to our physical body?
That's where resonance comes in. Larkey suggests that the soul wave can only connect with a physical body if it resonates with that body's unique synergy wave pattern.
So it's like each full wave has a specific frequency, and it's searching for a body that vibrates on that same frequency.
Exactly. And remember what shapes that frequency.
Our DNA.
Bingo. It's like our junk DNA is acting as a tuning fork, attracting the soul wave that vibrates at the same frequency.
Okay, you've officially flipped my whole understanding of DNA on its head. We've gone from junk to cosmic tuning fork in like 10 minutes.
And that's just the beginning. This connection between the soul wave and the synergy wave
Yeah.
is what Larkey calls the soul-body bond.
Soul-body bond. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I need a minute to process all of this. It's a lot to take in.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But that's what makes this stuff so fascinating.
No kidding. This is definitely going to keep me thinking for a while.
Me too. And we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, boy.
There's so much more to explore about what this bond means and how it plays out in our lives.
Well, then let's take a quick break and come back ready to dive even deeper into this soul-body bond.
Sounds good? I'm ready when you are.
All right, I think I've had a minute to wrap my head around all this talk of synergy waves and soul waves.
Good, because it's about to get even more interesting.
Oh,
We were talking about how those synergy waves, those unique energy patterns inside us, are shaped by our DNA.
right. And those waves are resonating with these soul waves out there in the universe.
Exactly. And that connection, that's what Larkey calls the soul-body bond.
Soul-body bond. Okay, I'm with you so far, but I'm still a little fuzzy on how this actually plays out in our lives. Like, does it have any practical implications?
Oh, definitely. In fact, Larkey's theory actually starts to connect with some of those ancient spiritual concepts, like chakras.
Chakras, okay, I've heard of those, but I'm not really sure what they are.
Well, they're often described as energy centers in the body.
Uh-huh.
And in Larkey's model, imagine that your synergy wave, the unique energy pattern that's flowing through you, it has these points where The energy is super concentrated.
So like peaks and valleys in the wave.
Exactly. And those peaks, those points of high energy, they correspond to what many spiritual traditions call chakras.
So our chakras are like energetic nodes in our personal wave system.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty mind-blowing. But I always thought chakras were more about like spiritual well-being. How does that tie into this whole soul-body bond thing?
Well, here's where it gets really fascinating. Larkey suggests that when we're born, our synergy wave and our soul wave are totally in sync.
Like perfectly aligned.
Yeah, it's this state of pure resonance, this beautiful harmony.
So we come into the world with this perfect energetic balance.
That's the idea. But then as we go through life, we experience stuff.
Stuff happens.
Exactly. We experience stress, trauma, negative emotions, all that stuff. And it can create distortions in our energy field.
So our synergy wave gets knocked out of whack.
Exactly. And when that happens, those chakra points, those energy centers, they can become blocked or imbalanced.
So the energy can't flow freely through them anymore.
Right. And that can manifest in all sorts of ways.
Like how?
Well, it can show up as physical ailments, emotional imbalances, even a sense of spiritual disconnection. It's like we're not fully tuned into that soul wave anymore.
That sounds kind of bleak. So are we just stuck with these distorted energy fields? Is there any way to get back to that state of harmony?
Not at all. There's definitely hope. Larkey suggests that we can actually work to restore the balance of our synergy wave.
So we can actually retune our energy.
Exactly. It's like fine-tuning a musical instrument
Interesting.
through practices like meditation, energy healing, even just living a more conscious and compassionate life.
Yeah.
We can start to smooth out those distortions and get our energy flowing freely again.
So we're essentially retraining our tuning fork, our DNA, to vibrate at a clearer frequency.
You got it. And as we do that, we can strengthen that connection with our soul wave and reestablish that harmony we were born with.
That's actually really encouraging, but it also makes me wonder about some of the stuff we're doing these days with technology, like genetic engineering. If our DNA is so crucial to this whole soul-body connection, could we be messing with something much deeper than we realize?
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
It's one that Larkey grapples with, too. They suggest that if we start manipulating our DNA without fully understanding its role in this energetic system,
Yeah.
we could be creating some unintended consequences.
So it's like we need to be really careful. We're not just tinkering with genes. We're tinkering with something much more fundamental.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why more research is so important. We need to understand how these subtle energy fields work before we start messing with the very blueprint of who we are.
That makes sense. But how do we even study something that's invisible? Can we actually measure these synergy waves?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's a tough one. But Larkey does suggest a few potential avenues for research. Remember how we talked about those repetitive sequences in our DNA acting like a filter for these waves?
Yeah.
Well, Larkey believes that this specific arrangement of those sequences, those patterns, they create unique boundary conditions that shape the synergy wave. So if we could analyze those patterns in detail, really dig into the structure of our DNA, we might find some evidence to support this whole idea.
So it's like looking for clues within the structure of our DNA itself.
Exactly like a hidden code waiting to be cracked. And there might be other ways to detect these energy fields, too. Some researchers are looking into something called biophotons.
Biophotons, what are those?
It's light that's emitted by living organisms.
Light coming from living beings. That's wild. So what does that have to do with energy fields?
Well, some scientists believe that this biophotonic light, it might carry information about the organism's state of health, even their consciousness.
Whoa, okay. And remember how Larkey's model suggests that the soul wave is interacting with the synergy wave, creating this unique energy pattern?
Yeah, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Maybe, so you're saying that maybe this biophotonic light could be a way for us to indirectly detect the presence of these energy patterns, including the soul wave.
It's a possibility. It's definitely still speculative, but it's an area that deserves more research. It could open up a whole new understanding of how these subtle energies work and how they connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but I have to admit, a part of me is still struggling with the idea of a soul wave. It sounds so intangible, so out there. What happens to it when we die?
The age-old question. And Larkey's model actually offers a unique perspective on death. Remember, their theory suggests that the soul wave can only stay connected to the body because of that stable synergy wave pattern that's created by our living cells.
Right. It's like that resonant frequency has to be constantly maintained for the connection to hold. So what happens when our physical body can no longer maintain that frequency?
Well, according to Larkey, when we die, the biological processes that sustain that synergy wave pattern, they start to break down the boundary conditions imposed by our physical structure.
Yeah.
They collapse, the delicate balance is disrupted, and the synergy wave essentially dissolves.
So it's like turning off the transmitter, the signal is no longer being broadcast, so the receiver, in this case the soul wave, can no longer pick it up.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And without that resonant frequency to anchor it to the physical body, the soul wave is free to detach.
So in a sense, the soul wave is liberated. It's no longer bound by the limitations of the physical form.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah,
Mm.
what happens to the soul wave after that is beyond the scope of Larkey's model. But it does open up some really interesting possibilities.
Mhm.
It makes you think about things like reincarnation or the continuation of consciousness beyond physical death.
Definitely gives you a whole new perspective on death. It's not necessarily an ending, but maybe more like a transition, a shift to a different state of being.
Exactly. It invites us to question our assumptions about the nature of life and death,
Mm.
and to consider the possibility that consciousness might not be limited to the physical realm.
Okay, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from junk DNA shaping subtle energy waves to the potential connection between these waves and our souls and chakras and even enlightenment. It's a lot to process.
It really is, but it's all connected, you know?
Yeah, it is. So what stands out to you as the most significant takeaway from all of this?
For me, it's the shift in perspective that Larkey's work offers.
Yeah.
It challenges us to move beyond that purely materialist view of biology,
Yeah.
and to consider the possibility that we're far more than just a collection of cells and genes, that there are these deeper energetic dimensions to our being, and those dimensions might hold the key to understanding who we are and why we're here.
I totally agree. And it's not just about our individual selves either. If this idea of interconnected energy patterns is accurate, it suggests that we're all part of this much larger web of life. And our actions and intentions, they can ripple out and affect others in ways we might not even realize.
That's a great point. It highlights the potential implications of this model for things like collective consciousness and the interconnectedness of all beings.
Well, I think we've given our listener plenty to chew on before we wrap up. Is there a final provocative thought you want to leave them with, something to spark their curiosity and inspire them to explore these ideas further?
Here's one to ponder. If our junk DNA is really the link to this deeper energetic self, and if, as Larkey suggests, our consciousness might persist beyond the physical body, what does that mean for the nature of time itself? Could these energy patterns transcend our linear perception of time, connecting us to past, present, and future in ways we can't yet comprehend?
Ooh, that's a great one. It really pushes the boundaries of our imagination and opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. While we've been talking, I've been thinking about this whole soul wave idea and how it connects to these near-death experiences people report.
Ah, near-death experiences. That's a great point. Those stories always make you wonder.
They really do. It's like there's this whole other realm out there just beyond our reach.
And Larkey's model actually offers a really interesting way to think about those experiences. Remember how the theory suggests that the soul wave needs that constant resonant frequency?
Right from the synergy wave.
Exactly, it needs that stable synergy wave to stay anchored to the body.
So what happens when that connection gets disrupted, like in a near-death experience?
Well, think about what people typically describe. They talk about feeling detached from their bodies.
Right, like floating above it all.
And then there's that tunnel of light, and sometimes they even report seeing deceased loved ones.
It's pretty amazing stuff, and it happens across so many different cultures and backgrounds.
Exactly. It's hard to ignore those common threads. And while Larkey doesn't specifically talk about near-death experiences in their work, we can kind of speculate based on their model.
So how would you explain near-death experiences through this lens of synergy waves and soul waves?
Well, what if during a near-death experience, the synergy wave is severely disrupted, but not completely gone?
So like the signal gets really weak, but there's still a tiny spark of connection.
Exactly. And maybe that's when the soul wave starts to detach.
Yeah.
Like it's getting a glimpse of what's beyond the physical realm.
What's
But
so
then,
then?
as the body starts to recover, the synergy wave stabilizes,
Huh.
and the soul wave gets pulled back in.
Wow. So it's like a temporary detachment, a brief journey into the unknown. It's a possibility. And it kind of makes sense when you think about all those stories people tell about feeling like they were on the verge of something bigger.
It really makes you wonder about the limits of our perception and how much more there might be to reality than we can currently grasp.
It really does. And it also highlights just how delicate that soul-body bond might be, you know?
Yeah, it makes you think.
It makes you think about the impact of things like trauma or chronic stress or even certain medical procedures.
Right, like anything that could mess with those subtle energy patterns.
Exactly. We're not just flesh and blood. We're also these incredibly complex, energetic beings.
It's like we're just starting to scratch the surface of understanding who we really are.
Exactly. And that's what makes all of this so exciting. It pushes us to expand our understanding of what it means to be human.
As we've been talking about all of this, I've been struck by how this whole idea of a soul wave, it actually connects with so many different cultural and spiritual
Oh,
traditions.
absolutely. It's not a new concept at all. Not at all. I mean, cultures all over the world have talked about the soul or the spirit for centuries.
Exactly. They've had different names for it and different ways of understanding it, but the underlying idea is the same, that there's a part of us that exists beyond the physical body. It's like humanity has always intuitively known that there's more to us than meets the eye.
And maybe Larkey's model, with its blend of science and spirituality, is giving us a new language, a new framework for understanding these ancient intuitions.
That's a great way to put it, a new language for the soul.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there any final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
If our junk DNA really is the key to this soul-body connection,
Hmm.
and if, as Larkey suggests, our consciousness can potentially exist beyond the physical body, then what does that tell us about the nature of identity?
Yeah.
Is our sense of self solely bound to our physical form, or is it something much more expansive, much more fluid, much more interconnected with the universe around us?
Wow. That's a really profound question, and I think it's the perfect note to end on it. It invites us to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deeper into the mysteries of existence.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, everyone, this is a journey we're all on together. So keep those minds curious, those hearts open, and keep exploring. Because in the vastness of the cosmos, every single one of us plays a part in the grand unfolding of the universe.
Beautifully said. And on that note, it's time for us to emerge from this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning and keep wondering.